Conman Craig Brown, pictured, has been jailed after persuading two women to give him more than £670,000. The love-rat Conman, who duped two women he met on a dating website into selling their homes before giving him £670,000, was told by a court to pay back just £1. Craig Brown, 47, started talking to the women, who had no idea about one another, online and persuaded them both to sell their homes. Both women, who lived 50 miles from each other in Coventry and Derby, believed he was working away for their future while he was actually with the other woman. Brown, of Nuneaton, Warwickshire, was jailed for 5.5 years after admitting for charges of fraud and 2 of assault at Warwick Crown Court. At that time, a confiscation hearing under the Proceeds of Crime Act was adjourned for an investigation into his finances, and at the resumed hearing, prosecutor Justin Jarmola said police financial investigators had established Brown had a benefit of £674,495 from his dishonesty, but he had told the court he had nothing left after gambling it all away, so Judge Richard Bond made a confiscation order under the Proceeds of Crime Act for a nominal £1 to be paid within 3 months, with 1 day in prison in default. Explaining the need for an order in such a small amount, Mr. Jarmola said, "The reason the order is made is that, should any funds or assets be discovered in the future, or Mr. Brown come into any money, this order can be revisited during the original hearing." It was said Brown met his first victim, who lived in Derby and owned her own home, through a dating website in June 2010. Within 4 months, Brown, who claimed to own a business called Jade Security, had moved into her home and proposed to her, but having gained her trust, he set about defrauding her as they began house hunting. He persuaded her he needed £3,000 to set up a mortgage, and she also paid for legal fees over their proposed purchase of various houses, which fell through. Brown encouraged her to give up her job, claiming he could support her, but the relationship then became volatile, and he assaulted her by stamping on her foot, breaking a bone in it, and later grabbed her by the hair, pulling out a chunk. He claimed his company had a lucrative contract, but that they needed to put up £50,000 to secure it, of which he said his partner was providing £40,000 and he needed to find the rest. Brown showed her a bank slip purporting to show his non-existent company had a balance of £800,000, which he claimed had been temporarily frozen by the Inland Revenue, so she took out a £5,000 loan to help out. Brown, of Nuneaton, Warwickshire, was jailed for 5.5 years after admitting for charges of fraud and 2 of assault at Warwick Crown Court. Pictured in March 2015, she sold her home, still believing they were looking for another place, and Brown cruelly persuaded her to put the £44,000 proceeds into his account on the basis that it earned higher interest than hers. They ended up living in a caravan home on which she was again paying the mortgage, said prosecutor Stuart Clarkson. His deception finally came to light in September last year when she believed they were going on holiday to Florida with members of his family. When the airport taxi turned up without him, his sister and the woman contacted the holiday company, only to find nothing had been booked. Mr. Clarkson said, she was left with no savings and no home, estranged from her own family and living with the fact that the previous 6 years of her life had been a lie. Brown had also been living a lie during those 6 years with a Coventry woman he had met through the same dating site, claiming he had a kitchen fitting business. He persuaded her to part with £3,300 to help with a supposed problem with his tax, and then to invest £47,000 in a non-existent garage business. After their return from a holiday in Turkey, he convinced her he had arranged to have a house built for them there, and to help fund the fictitious project she gave him her £55,000 savings and cash and endowment policy for a further £11,000. Brown later claimed funds had run out for the project, and persuaded her to sell her home and to hand over the £120,000 proceeds to finance its completion. And as more and more money was needed, her father was also taken in by the lies, then transferred large sums of money to her to then transfer to Brown, even taking out loans against his own home to help them. McDevine, defending, said, the money he obtained went exclusively to fund his runaway gambling habit. He hoped the big win would come in, but of course it didn't.